You can start.
Okay, so hello everyone. Very warm greetings from India. So I'm Priyamvada Srivastava, and I take the privilege to be a resource person for the training session by the Training, Learning and Development Department of the International Internship University. So before I start my session today, I'll just brief you about it. Today, the topic on which I'm going to speak is on suppressed emotions. We'll be discussing about suppressed emotions, how we can cope up with suppressed emotions, how we can deal and handle these emotions, and what to do in case we have these emotions inside us. So just give me a moment before I share my screen with you all. Um, I think that's visible to you all. So yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is suppressed emotions and a little introduction about myself. Who am I? So I have my own platform named Let's Broach. From there, I take care of the emotional wellness of people across the globe. So I'm a corporate trainer, a counseling psychologist, a cyber lawyer registered with the Bar Council of India. I'm the legal representative of APDH organization Mauritius. I'm an international speaker and an author of my recently launched book named Emotional Wiring. You can find me on social media like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Google, now on Amazon as well through my book. My website is letsbroach.com and my phone number is there in case you want to connect with me. So, before we start, I want to start this session with a beautiful, very deep quote, which is stated in Sanskrit. It goes as Chintascha chitascha bindu matra vishishyate chinta dehti nirjivanam chita dehti jivanam. In Sanskrit, there is only one difference between the spelling of stress and funeral pyre. That is a small dot. The pyre burns the dead body and the stress burns the living. Now, suppose something bad happens to you that causes you a great deal of emotional pain. In such a situation, what will you do? What will be your take on a situation that causes you immense emotional pain? Usually, there are three possible things that people do in such a situation. First, they try to fix what went wrong, if at all it is possible. Second, they express their emotions if they cannot fix that particular emotion. And third, they suppress their emotion by denying that something painful happened to them, or they simply use their defense mechanism stating that everything is fine around them, nothing wrong has happened, the world is as it was, and they're not going through any pain. While action 1 and 2 are the appropriate ways to deal with any kind of unpleasant emotion. But action 3, that is denial mode, suppressing that particular emotion, that denial mode is harmful. it can have harmful effects on your psyche and well-being. Action one, which was trying to fix what went wrong, is the best scenario, best way to deal with anything negative, any negative life event when you are helpless. But action two can provide relief, some kind of relief in a healthy manner. At least you are not sinking with the wrong that happened with you, plus the negative emotion that was draining you, that is already inside you, that you are unable to vent out, that you have suppressed, that you have kept inside you. Now, what are emotions? When we are talking about emotions so loudly, usually whenever I take this session, the answers which I get are emotions are feelings, they are what we go through, how we express, what we deal, or anything on this earth which is related to feelings, our expressions, our emotions. This is what people answer me when I ask them, what do you understand by emotions? But it sounds so simple, right? When I'll say that 100% of you all who are listening to me right now have misinterpreted your emotion at some time or the other, you'll agree with me. There might be some other emotion which you were going through, and you yourself couldn't diagnose the true emotion you were in, and you misinterpreted it. Usually, people who pretend some other emotion instead of the one they are not accepted as the right people, or are called hypocrites, right? But that's a negative word. And how can all of us be negative at the same time? It is not possible, is it? So, before we begin, let's understand what are emotions and what are misrepresenting emotions. You can see this cycle of different emotions which has been mentioned. And trust me, each name of the emotion which is mentioned in this circle, on this card, is different from one another. So, with just a glance at this slide of mine, you can imagine that how many emotions are there in this world. Broadly, if we divide it very, very, very broadly, there are total approximately 27 broad emotions like admiration, adoration, aesthetic, appreciation, amusement, anger, anxiety, awe, awkwardness, etc., etc., etc. But what I want here to focus you all, I want all of you to focus here is emotions are our mental states. Emotions are our mindsets. Emotions are what we design ourselves to behave when we are in that particular zone of that situation. So, emotions, according to me, are mental states brought on by neurophysiological changes. Now, there are few changes in our body, which is variously associated with our thoughts, our feelings, our behavioral responses, and a degree of pleasure or displeasure. Emotions are complex. Now, emotions basically have five key elements. These crucial elements of emotions, as you can see on this slide, are coordinated and are involved during an emotional episode in all the individuals. So, any one single person who's going through an emotional cycle will actually have all these five elements in that one single episode. First is cognitive appraisal. Cognitive appraisal, it provides an evaluation of events and objects. Here you discuss it with people and then you derive to a conclusion, and depending on that, you decide your emotion or your behavior. Now, bodily symptoms or say physical symptoms. These are physiological components of emotional experience, like um, when we feel shy, we blush, or when we are not feeling, when we are nervous, we tremble. When we are scared, there's nausea or dizziness or upset stomach, or we start sweating, or there are muscle tensions. So, pulse rate, everything changes as per our emotions. Third are action tendencies. Tendencies are motivational component for the preparation of for the preparation and direction of motor responses. Like when we are sad, everything will slow down. Not just things around us, even we slow down or we withdraw ourselves. When there's fear or anxiety, we just try to find an escape route. When there's anger, our defense mechanisms become activated and we attack, whether it is physically or verbally. When there's shame, we hide, we try to cover ourselves, we try to cover our face. So these are different action tendencies which are associated with different emotions we go through. Then there are facial expressions like our eyebrows, our eyes, our lips, our cheeks. Every action, every muscle will respond according to our emotion, and our facial expressions will change. And last but not the least are our feelings. People always misinterpret feelings as emotions, but please remember it now. Feelings are one of the key elements of emotions. So, feelings are the subjective experience of emotional state once it has occurred. So, when it has already occurred, then that subjective experience, how you are feeling, okay, that situation has already occurred, that emotional state has already happened, then the feelings are decided, and then all these symptoms, all these key elements come into picture. Now, coming to today's topic, suppressed emotions. We understood what are emotions, but now coming to suppressed emotions. When we talk about suppressed emotions are simply emotions, okay, we choose not to acknowledge, thereby failing to act on them or expressing them. One fact you need to be aware of is that emotions can never really be suppressed. So, they always find a way to come out or leak out. It might sound weird, but actually, this is the right term. They will always find a way to leak out in one way or the other, so it makes no sense trying to suppress them. Emotions can disappear if your problem resolves itself, though, but that's not what we are talking about here. What we are talking about here are mostly socially induced negative emotions that tend to persist. For example, being angry at someone or yourself. Suppressed emotions are nothing but carrying extra energy you did not dissipate. Usually these emotions that stays with us and increases the burden on our head. So, people sometimes suppress their emotions and avoid fully experiencing or responding to them. These emotions can be channeled or redirected into physical activities, as I mentioned, that these are the ways of venting out. But again, when we vent out, they are no more suppressed. Till they are inside, they are only suppressed. People also mislabel or misinterpret a suppressed emotion to replace the comfortable feeling with a more acceptable one. all things have a natural tendency to become stable by releasing extra energy, and we humans are no different. Suppressed emotions have to come out so that we become psychologically and physically stable. Now, consider an example of an employee and his boss. Suppose an employee who gets shouted at by his boss for a petty reason. This obviously makes him angry, right? And but he doesn't redirect his anger. Obviously, nobody will go and shout back at the boss. So he doesn't redirect his anger back to his boss for the fear that he might lose his job, or he won't remain in the good books of his boss anymore. So what happens with this suppressed anger? What happens in such a situation? How does he get rid of his feelings of anger? In such situations, usually, I told you, remember, that somehow it will leak out, it won't stay there. Now, this employee will dump his anger, his suppressed emotion on his helpless juniors who cannot yell at them. This is called displacement of emotion. This employee will displace his emotions on his juniors, emotions that were supposed to be redirected to his boss. And what if he didn't get a chance or manage to dump his anger on his juniors? Due to some unavoidable reasons, he will go home and dump his anger on his family, be it his partner or his children, anybody. So, usually we think that we have kept that particular emotion inside us and it is no more with us. But actually, what happens that the suppressed emotion, it tries to come out at different places and affect all our relations plus our psychological balance. Now, why do we suppress emotion? This is very interesting and one of my favorite concerns. Like, why um, do we suppress our emotions consciously, or what are the causes of suppressing emotions? So, as you have seen, the primary reason why people suppress emotion is that they don't want to come across as unlikable. They don't want to ruin their relationships. If you break it down, there are a host of psychological reasons why people suppress their emotions. Some directly affect or indirectly, some are directly or indirectly related to maintaining one's social image. Now, first point is negative emotions are painful to experience or acknowledge. So the easiest way to escape such emotion is suppressing them. The moment you acknowledge that you're going through some negative emotion, you'll go back. People tend to go back to that same pain again, and they just want to escape that pain. So it is easiest not to not to acknowledge them. This becomes a rescue for them. Now, second, people want to appear perfect to others and to themselves. So, acknowledging their mistakes or failures and the feelings associated with them can be hard to accept. How can you go and tell somebody that you're afraid or you're scared or you failed or you have hurt somebody or somebody just shouted at you and you couldn't respond back? So, with your image, if it is not going and you do not want to show this particular aspect of yours to your near and dear ones, obviously, in that particular moment, you'll suppress that emotion only to appear that you are perfect. Whatever happens, you are able to handle it. But in reality, you actually need a place to talk or vent out that particular emotion. Third, many people believe that expressing negative emotions makes a person appear weak and lacking control. So that is the reason, like anger, one of the most misinterpreted emotion. And if you express your anger publicly, people actually start believing that you lack control. And this judgment is one thing with which you do not want to interact, or you do not want to get labeled as you do not have any anger management skills, or you lack control over your extreme negative emotions. So that is why they suppress their emotions. And last, people don't want to get labeled as negative. Now, this is one of the major issues in today's world, especially when this positive thinking movement is encouraged, and people are ignoring their negative emotions. That is only to communicate to the world that, okay, no matter what, I'm a positive thinker and everything around me is positive, whether it is emotions or my behavior or my pattern of thinking. I have no negative pattern in my thought or in my feelings or in my expressions or in my emotions. So actually, I'm actually perturbed when we discuss this and when we talk about this angle of this cause of suppressed emotions, that this positive thinking movement is actually forcing people to suppress their true emotions and not guiding them how they can manage their true emotions. Now, consequences of suppressing your emotions. So when it is a very beautiful quote from Forbes India. I wanted to quote it here, so I actually picked it up. It says, bottling emotions can decrease outward expressions of feelings, but does not change the inner state of a person. Effectively, suppression does not make the feelings go away. They stay inside you, buried deeper, causing more pain. When we talk about the consequences of suppressing your emotions, by now, all of you, those who are listening to me or those who listen me later, would have understood that any kind of suppression is not good for both our physical and emotional health. Now, suppressing our emotions when they need to be expressed causes us to dump them somewhere, or say elsewhere, on innocent people if we are not careful. If we keep on suppressing our negative emotions, they get buried on in our subconscious. This often results in mood swings, unexplained sadness, or mild depression. Now, that is not it. It is just the beginning. The problems, the consequences become worse. Bottling up your emotion can make you even more aggressive than the actual aggression you are keeping inside. Suppressed emotions can also leak in the form of dreams or nightmares. If you're trying to hide an emotion in waking life, it may get expressed in your dreams. That is a psychological study. And if you continue to leave the emotion unexpressed, you might even get these recurring dreams about this. Now, it not just only lead to depression, it leads to low self-esteem and even physical illness in extreme cases, such as it has risk factor in premature deaths, including deaths from cancer. Research has shown that many illnesses have psychological reasons that are directly or indirectly related to stress. Remember the quote with which I started? There is only a single dot of difference in the spelling of stress and funeral pyre in Sanskrit when it is spelled in Sanskrit. That is just a single dot. Stress burns the living, while funeral pyre burns the dead. Now, it is not just that these consequences are mentally or physically taking a toll. They are actually, these suppressed emotions are actually very, very, very demanding in nature. Be it mentally, they are mentally demanding and exhausting. So, how you can find out that you are suppressing your true emotions? Before jumping to this, I actually want to mention one little term, which is another consequence of suppressing your emotions, and that is emotional numbness. In the process of suppressing emotions, people become so used to that pain that they become emotionally numb, not just to that particular pain, but also to all the other emotions that might excite them, bring happiness, make them alive, or can do anything, can bring anything positive in their lives. So sometimes we are not able to consciously suppress our emotions because of the regularity with which they occur. We get so used to their presence that we no longer detect them, and this is called emotional numbness. And its after effect, its consequences, that we become emotionally numb for all other emotions in our lives. It's like how a new piece of clothing makes you uncomfortable at first, but after some time you get so used to it that its presence doesn't bother you anymore. That's numbness. Now, how you can find out that you're suppressing your true emotions? So, being truly satisfied with your life can be immensely difficult thing to achieve. Nobody in this world has ever achieved it. In turn, this makes meeting such a goal more pressure filled than it should be. For this reason, many people resort to faking happiness. You would have met 101 like them in your lives, or you would have met them and you would not have even realized that they're faking up their emotions, or they're faking happiness to those around them. How can you tell if you're doing the same thing? That is how to find out that you are suppressing your emotions. I'll give you 5 signs that may suggest that you're not as happy as you pretend to be on the outside. First, the giant mood swings are a normal thing in your life now. Do you easily switch being joyful, lively, and excited to sadness, anger, or frustration? For some individual, this type of behavior could be an inclination of bipolar disorder, but that is again another extreme case. Experiencing giant mood swings doesn't necessarily mean that you're suffering from mental illness, but it may be helpful to notice whether this is a tendency for you, and if while being genuinely happy doesn't mean you have to keep your mood up all the time. That's impossible anyway. Frequently going from one extreme to other can be an indication that there are issues you may not be addressing properly. Second, you feel tired all the time. It is normal to experience periods of stress when we feel more fatigued than usual. But if you're tired all the time, it can be a sign of a medical problem like some psychological issue, or sleep apnea, or diabetes, or poor lifestyle choices. But things are far less clear cut when speaking about mental health. For example, fatigue is a common symptom for those struggling with anxiety or depression. If you find yourself constantly insisting that you are fine and you're cheerful, but you're tired all the time, it could be a sign of something more, something which is, despite of your physical parameters being perfectly correct, This is related with your emotional well-being. So, mood swings again. These are one thing, like frequent mood swings or feeling tired all the time. These are few indications, these are few alarms which you shouldn't ignore. Third, you are trying too hard to show others how great your life is, like social media, the best example of it. Despite of having a very tired day and awful lunch, you got something good for your dinner, and before grabbing that good thing, you preferred clicking a picture to send it as a post for your friends to look and say, wow, what what delicious meal you're having for your dinner. So, any person who is not suppressing their emotion, or they're not putting that extra effort, would have eaten that meal when they had a very long, very tiring, disastrous day, and would not have even bothered of clicking the photo for that meal unless some situation asks for it. Instead of eating, if you're clicking the picture and sharing it on a social media and waiting for people to respond, like, and send hearts or emojis, wow factors to that picture, there's something seriously which is wrong. You are actually putting that extra effort to show the world that you are actually happy. But remember, I told you that you had a very difficult day during the day, or you did not even get a good lunch. Fourth, you're totally isolated from others. You do not like interacting with people, or calls from friends and family annoy you, or you want that peace of silence, and um, talking to people disturbs you, irritates you. You feel agitated all the time. Quite possible. Fifth, you are abusing some kind of substances, say alcohol, smoking, gaming, screen addiction. You want to escape from other things, distract yourself, and you are on screen watching your YouTube or reels or shorts, whatever that suits you, whatever that gives you that moment to escape from that particular emotional distraction, and that gives you more peace, that gives you more adventure, that gives you more kick. So you are actually escaping from these feelings, these emotional outbreaks, to get engaged into something which doesn't bother you much, or which doesn't remind you about what is happening, what is causing that pain to you. Now, emotions are very important to be expressed. Emotions should never be suppressed, but acknowledged and dealt with by doing something about them, like taking actions to fix what went wrong. If that's not possible, then expressing your emotions in some way is a good option. Of course, you can do both in order, but um, try to avoid suppressing your emotions as much as possible. Like, there are statements which we give to ourselves in situations where we are caught, such as, I shouldn't be feeling this way, I should get over it. Or our friends are coming and asking us, be positive, stop being so emotional, get over it, stop crying, why you are getting so angry, everything is fine, things will settle down. These are phrases uttered by people who are used to suppress their own emotions, and they want us to do the same. They don't understand emotions think that by being emotionally numb, they can do away with their negative emotions. But trust me, it doesn't work like this. You can express your emotions by talking about them, writing about them, or writing them, redirecting them to the right people, or even pummeling a poor punching back ruthlessly. But as you can see on this slide, there are sometimes some situations when you cannot express your emotions, when you cannot express your emotions the way you want to express them, the way you want to vent out. Isn't it? All of us go through such phases in our lives where we actually want to yell at a public space, but because of our social image or the negative social consequences, we prefer not to. We choose not to, isn't it? Of course, these are situations where you cannot express your emotions. Expressing your emotions can have negative social consequences. As I told you, I'm not suggesting you go about expressing your emotions all day. Sometimes it's smart to hide your emotions. When emotional suppression the key sorry what emotional suppression is, that the alternative to expression doesn't have to be suppression. um, we all need to understand that alternative of expression is not suppression. When strong emotions are triggered in us, they demand to be heard before they demand to be expressed or acted upon. When emotional suppression What emotional suppression does is that it short circuits the above pathway. It actively tries to acknowledge and not feel the emotion. This hinders what the emotion is designed to accomplish, and so it lingers, keep tugging at your psyche and intensifies um, over time, and causes us even more pain than it actually could have, causes us more damage, that is the double damage, than it would have actually caused if it would have expressed at that very moment. As you can see, emotional suppression creates the loop that only gets stronger over time. On one hand, your subconscious is sending you the emotion, but on the other you're consciously blocking it, that is you're consciously suppressing it. You don't want always need to express or act in your emotions. That's ideal, but it's the final stage of dealing with negative emotions. You first need to acknowledge, feel, and more importantly, understand why you are expressing a particular emotion. Doing so sends a message to your subconscious that you have received the message, and your subconscious calms down. Think of those automated messages that you get when you contact the customer care of the company. They calm you down and reassure you that your message is received, even if not acted upon immediately. It calms us down. That message, that one single message, and the calmness with which the customer care assures us that they have received our complaint and they'll be working upon us, is enough to soothe our veins and our nerves and rescue us from the panic attacks. So imagine if the customer care professional were to tell you, sir, you shouldn't feel this way. No, 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 no. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. Yeah, everything is all right. You need to be positive. You would be furious and may get stuck in a loop of trying to get your message across aggressively, and that will only furiate you more. And that's exactly what emotional suppression does. That exactly what emotion, when we do not acknowledge them, do to us. So, in such situations, when you cannot express your emotions, you actually need to pass a message to your brain saying that this has happened and this is the true emotion, but for that, you need to identify that particular emotion. There's a very, very, very big difference between controlling your emotions and suppressing your emotions. I've seen people often getting confused between these two terms. They usually think that controlling your um, controlling the emotion is equivalent to suppressing your emotion. But actually, controlling your emotion is acknowledging your feelings, whereas suppressing your emotion is ignoring your feelings. Controlling your emotions um, not expressing how you feel is a choice. You choose not to express uh, that particular emotion. But suppressing your emotion is not your choice. It is done by you, how you feel, um, by not expressing, it is done by you subconsciously. Controlling your emotions, when you control your emotions, you may express it indirectly by journaling or meditation or by talking to a friend or a counselor. But suppressing your emotion is you decide not to bring it up with anybody, even with yourself. It nags you at you in the back of your brain. It is very easy and it is always misinterpreted when we say that we have controlled our emotions. But at that very moment, when you decide that you do not want to act upon that particular emotion, you need to check within yourself whether you have actually acknowledged that emotion. Suppose, I'll give you an example. If you are facing, some threat, and there are 10 more people in that room, and they see you in this situation, and you decide not to act upon it. In that very moment, you need to check whether whether the decision which you have taken is taken consciously or is subconsciously. Whether you are not acting upon that particular emotion because you'll be judged by 10 people, or you do not know what to do at that very moment, or you're hesitant to ask for help from others. Controlling your emotions in such situation would be you know what emotion you are into. You acknowledge that emotion. You're not shy about talking about that particular emotion. You are not shy about discussing that emotion. You are not shy about bringing that emotion back, or um, particularly asking for help, or raising the questions, or understanding that situation again with the help of others, or by rethinking alone. But if you're suppressing that particular emotion in that particular moment, it means that you have taken a call that you do not want to discuss that emotion. You do not want to raise that emotion. You do not want to get back to that particular situation and feel the whole pain, anxiety, drama again. So, when we talk about suppressed emotions, each one of us would have suppressed some emotions because of different reasons, because of different circumstances, and then we pat our back by saying that we had taken a right decision by not reacting or by not accepting that particular emotion. But remember that emotion is inside you, and every day it is damaging you. So it is very important for us to understand our own emotions and identify our emotions. Identifying your own emotion is an art. It is not something like you'll go to a doctor and they'll diagnose it for you. Even if you go to a counselor, even if you come to me tomorrow, um, I'll also ask you questions which will, bring back the pain to you. And then uh, you'll have to identify that emotion yourself. This diagnosis any day will not be done alone by the counselor. You'll have to be an equal participant. So it is always advisable that never suppress your emotions because they become more damaging that way. You need to control your emotions, become emotionally intelligent, because identifying your emotion will help you taking a wise action over your emotions and mapping your emotions. Remember, EQ plus IQ, that is emotional quotient plus intelligent quotient, is a deadly combination, and it's rare. So you actually need to work upon your emotions and protect yourself, not damage yourself, and um, be little more aware about your own self. Thank you so much. I hope you'll work upon these emotions, and you can connect with me on any of the social media platforms through IIU or my page, which is Let's Broach, available on Facebook and Instagram, or you can find me on letsbroach.com. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day ahead.